There you go.
Hello, bookworms. Today we are doing another, I was going to say episode, I guess it kind of is like an episode of the Spines with Wines book club, except we have a super special guest with us here today. We have Alexa.
Hi.
You probably know Alexa from her booktube channel, Alexa Loves Books, and also her book blog, Alexa Loves Books. And yeah, she is filling in for Melissa today, and she has read Six of Crows 2 times. So we're really looking forward to having her insight into all these questions. So I kind of introduced you, but if you guys just want to say hi and tell us what you're drinking.
Okay, so I'm going first this week, and I'm going to try to remember that this whole time. Okay, so I had a really hard time finding a themed wine at the liquor store because I really wanted a red and black label, and the only ones I could find were red wines, and I do not drink red wines. So I ended up getting this Riesling. It's got like a nice black label.
Oh yes,
called Cabinet. But then to make it more festive, I bought this bottle topper at the store. So, kind of.
That's cool. I approve, like 100%.
Yeah, I'm really glad the Halloween stuff was out at Target. So.
Oh, so it's a Halloween thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I guess it's supposed to be like the Raven.
Yeah, let's pretend it's a crow.
Yeah, it's a crow.
It's a crow. It's totally a crow. Okay, I guess it's my turn now.
Yep.
Okay. I'm new to this, guys. FYI. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, I am not drinking wine, sadly, because I am also not feeling very well today. I actually have iced coffee, an iced mocha, and I went with dark when I normally would go with light because we are talking about Six of Crows, and since the cover is kind of dark, and since, I just feel like all these characters would probably go for a darker roast if they were going with a coffee, so iced coffee.
Yeah, they would need lots of caffeine to pull up their house.
And I'm excited to be doing Spines with Wines with you guys today.
I'm also drinking tea out of my little Marie mug because I do not feel good, and it's decaf candy cane tea from Trader Joe's that I got like last year. It's so good, and I'm drinking decaf because I'm gonna go like right back to sleep after this.
Oh.
Once again, I'm drinking for 3.
Oh well. Okay, so into the questions. Did you guys think that the hype surrounding Six of Crows did anything to like have an effect on your reading experience?
You don't want to do a synopsis?
Oh yeah, we should do that. Sorry. I swear I'm blaming the sickness.
Fine. First. Okay. I can do the synopsis since apparently that's my job as the new person in this edition. Anyway, Six of Crows is a book set in the Grishaverse. Man, that's really hard for me to say, which Leigh Bardugo created with her first series. And this book follows a completely new set of characters. There are actually 6 of them, and they team up together to perform this incredibly impossible heist, which has a very important effect on their home kingdom, which you guys will find out when you read the book. Because I'm not going to tell you what they're trying to get. Let's just say it's very Ocean's 11. Very Ocean's 11.
Yeah. Now back to that hype.
Yeah, back to the hype question.
Yeah. Did that do anything to change your reading experience?
Usually it does, but I don't know. It didn't affect me at all this time, which I'm really happy about because I think I have a feeling it affected Kristen based on what I heard. But yeah, no, the hype machine did not affect me at all, and I'm really happy about that since it took me a whole extra year to finally get to this book.
I mean, you could say you had really good timing since that means you guys have the sequel coming out in like, what, days?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did really good. Now we don't have to wait to find out because it's a duology. Better.
When I read it last year, and I was lucky because I got to read it a little early, little meaning like the month before. And obviously, since not a lot of people had read it then, I didn't really get into the hype too much. I actually feel kind of guilty because I feel like I contributed to it. But yeah, when I read it, it was just like, all my impressions, all my opinions were very like just based on the book and not on anything I had heard from anyone else. So yeah, it didn't really bother me at all. And even when after, like, you know, when I read it the second time, since I had already loved it, I knew I was going to love it again in spite of what I'd seen, which is like weird now because I've seen a lot of hype, but then I've also seen a few people who are like, I didn't really like it, which surprised me. And I was like, maybe I'm not reading it right. Then I read it again and I was like, nope, I still love it. It's still good.
That's good. I feel like I don't think I've seen anyone that hasn't liked it. But I watched so much BookTube that I feel like I just saw so many people talk about how it was like the best book ever. So I had like super, super high expectations going into it. And while I still did really love it, I feel like I was just expecting like so much out of it that it didn't ruin my experience because I did still enjoy it. But I was just like, if I had not heard as much about it, I probably would have liked it more. If that makes sense.
That's fair.
So did you guys read the Grisha trilogy? And if you did, do you think it like helped your reading experience of Six of Crows? And if you didn't read it, do you feel like it hindered anything for you?
I did not read it, and now I'm kind of regretting that because this book was so great that there's no way that the Grisha trilogy could be as awesome as this. Because I have heard mixed things about that, so now at this point I'm like, do I want to go back? I know eventually I will, but not right now.
I think that's fair. I have read the Grisha trilogy, and I did read it before Six of Crows. And personally, I don't think it matters whether you read it or not when you read Six of Crows. I mean, it does give you a teensy bit more insight on some of like the random things that she's thrown into this one that correlate to the first series. But it's not big, life-changing things that will change how you feel about this book, or like, unless she does that in the second book, which I don't know yet. But I don't like it. Didn't really hinder or help the experience in either way. I think like this book definitely, Six of Crows definitely stands on its own. So it doesn't matter if you've read the first trilogy or not. I think it's just like if you were really in love with the world in the first trilogy, maybe it's like you feel like you're coming home to it again when reading Six of Crows, even though you're seeing a different side of it. I think, yeah, so that's basically how I feel about it. I liked the Grisha trilogy. I really liked it, but I didn't fall in love with it the way I did with Six of Crows.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's good to know too, because I know Krista and I were like, half the people we were hearing from were like, oh, you don't have to read the Grisha trilogy, and then another group of people were like, oh no, you definitely have to read it before you. And I read one and I gave up.
I mean, I feel like if you guys didn't feel lost at all anytime you guys were reading the book, then you're fine. Because I'm like, it really has no bearing on Six of Crows, except for like the tiniest things. Like you'll see it when you read the old trilogy, if ever you guys do that. You'll see the way it relates to the new one, and you'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's basically how you're going to react, honestly.
I like that we all have different answers for this one, because I read the first book in the Grisha trilogy before I read this, but I didn't read the second two. And I feel like it did help me a little bit just because I had like background information on the Grishas. Because you find out, like, you definitely find out enough about them in Six of Crows, but it was nice to know like just kind of a different side to that story and to like see a little bit of inside of where like the main character in that book was. I can't even remember her name now. Alina. Yeah. So I feel like I was glad that I at least read one, but I didn't necessarily need to read the other ones.
Yeah, although read the second one.
Yeah, everyone seems to say that they like keep getting better, because I wasn't in love with the first one.
Oh, same. The only reason I like the second one is because a character shows up that I really love, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
And I already know like everyone has pretty much said that like the end, everyone hates it because she ends up with someone that no one likes.
I think I have no, like, I can't really give you an opinion on the third book because it's not my favorite in that series, but the first is still my least favorite. So it was like the second, then the third, then the first. I guess I must be one of those people who didn't mind it.
Okay.
But probably because my favorite character is still in it. It has nothing to do with it.
You're like, who cares about every other part of that book?
I just care about this person, and it's fine. You'll see. If you read it, I think you'll know exactly who I'm talking about when you read it.
Probably. How developed did you find the world of Ketterdam to be?
Ooh, I thought it was pretty developed. For some reason, I kept getting this weird Gangs of New York impression, like the whole time I was reading it, and I have no idea why, because it's based on Amsterdam, and I don't know, something about it just screamed Gangs of New York to me, which it was a little strange. But yeah, I think for the most part, we got, yeah, I'm gonna say yes.
Good answer. I agree. I also think that it was pretty, I mean, it's very contained because it's mostly just Ketterdam. Like, that's all you really get to see for a good portion of the book. And I think, yeah, I agree with your Gangs of New York feeling, because it is based on Amsterdam, but it's like the fact that there are such distinguished factions within Ketterdam that make it feel that way, I guess, maybe. And I think also that I got the really like messed up, crime-ridden, creepy, filthy vibe off this book, which is really sort of like weird to me that I liked it so much, because that's like it's not a setting that I would want to be in. It's not a setting that I necessarily enjoyed the entire time, because it was also really kind of terrible and awful most of the time. But I don't know. I think like she just did it in such a way that you see like all the terrible things, but then you also see like the other things that make it interesting and kind of draw you to it at the same time, even when you're like, this is a shitty place. This is a terrible place to live. I don't know why anyone would live here. Yeah, I think the world building was really good for Ketterdam and for other things.
I thought so too. I also was like surprised that I liked it so much, because it was such like a gritty place. But I thought that it was really well developed, and I liked that it felt like kind of close to like bad areas in our world, but then there were like fantastical elements to it also. So it just seemed very like real and believable, in my opinion. So do you think that, or did you enjoy the combination of Russian fantasy with the heist element? And do you think that the Ocean's 11 comparison is accurate?
I do. I've only seen Ocean's 11 once, but it did keep reminding me, especially, oh, Alexa, spoilers are okay. So I don't have to remember that with you. Spoilers are fine. Especially when they got into the prison and they had to, do all that stuff, and they kept having to go in disguise and figure out ways out of all these sticky situations. So I had just watched Ocean's 11 before I started this, like by a week.
Oh, I like that.
Kind of being like, yeah. Especially the switch in perspectives, like that helped too. But yeah, I really liked. It was an interesting blend of fantasy and crime drama and action, and yeah, I liked it.
I did too. I think like it. I just like that it is a heist. I think I just enjoy heist stories in general. It did remind me of Ocean's 11, and I did feel that was accurate. But you know what it also kind of reminded me of? Have you guys seen call it Now You See Me?
No.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of that, because that one's also kind of like magic and impossible things. So I was like,
it's got that really heavy magic fantasy element.
Yeah, it was really like I didn't know how she was going to do it when I started the book, and then to see like how it all weaves together, I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
She actually is capable of combining like all these magical things with like more practical physical things that are more realistic, and then combining it to make like this epic heist with only 6 people, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I definitely loved it too. Like, I thought it was really creative, because usually you got like fantasy, there's like your typical like fantasy elements, but because there was like this mission that was like a heist, it felt like so different than anything else that I've read. And I really thought that it was like very much like Ocean's 11. I have not seen that movie in a really long time. Like, I think I saw it once when it came out like years ago. But I definitely believe that it was very close to it. But yeah, I just thought that it was so cool. Like, I really was not expecting it to be the way that it was. I was expecting it to be more like the Grisha trilogy, even though I'd been told from the beginning that it was more like a heist, which I thought was cool.
It was nice having an apt comparison for once on like a book.
Yeah, exactly. This is like one of the rare occasions where it actually does match what the book was exactly. So I'm like, okay, good comparison.
Yeah, it feels like the Ant-Man of the Marvel universe. a heist film than a superhero movie.
Actually, yeah. You know what? That could work.
So did you guys like the swapping of perspectives, and did you have a favorite one to read from?
I keep forgetting that I'm supposed to go first. I was like, I have time to think about this. Ooh, I did. I really liked all the perspectives. I think Nina was my favorite. I started off really liking Kaz, but the more we got into Nina's backstory, I was a real Nina fan, and I really liked the way Leigh Bardugo like interwove in with the main story, like everyone's like really rich backstories. I enjoyed that immensely.
I agree. I liked the multiple perspectives because it's like they each have such a unique way of viewing their situation and like different motives and different personalities. So like getting to see it from all these sides is like, oh, okay, it's not as simple as I thought. It's a little more complicated than that. And I enjoyed everyone's perspectives. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I think Inej is my favorite. I love her so much. Like from the moment she first shows up and they describe how like who she is and how she is, like she's the Wraith and she's really good with like knives and being, you know, stealthy. I loved her so much. And I just love that she kind of has like this, she's got this weird perspective for someone who is part of like a gang. I mean, of course, unwarranted that she's not technically supposed to be there, but like it's just interesting because she has this side where it's still so innocent and she's trying so hard to be good, and then there's this other side where she's like, I have to do this to live. I just loved seeing that sort of dynamic in her the entire time that this story was unfolding.
Yeah, I thought that was really good too. She was also my favorite to read from. I felt like she had a really like interesting just perspective on everything because of who she was and her like position and everything. Because she was really like one of the only ones that didn't have like ulterior motives with certain things. Like this kind of just is her life, which I thought was cool. But yeah, so she was definitely my favorite, but I had no idea how to say her name. And so you said it. I'm assuming that's correct.
Yeah. I think so.
So actually, yeah, so the next question was that both Inej and Nina were really, really great female characters. What do you think the elements were that like made them such standout characters among the bunch? And did you have a favorite between the two of them, which I think we kind of just answered?
Yeah, I think we definitely just answered that. They were just, I didn't love their backstories. They're very tragic, but I really enjoyed getting that like glimpse at who they once were and why they're kind of the way they are and how they can possibly be in this situation. So I don't know if their backstories are what made them so strong to me or just their personalities were so distinct. Also, especially Nina, who's just like crazy and off the wall. So yeah.
Oh, I think that what I liked best about both of them is that they started out, it's also something to do with the backstories. They kind of start out as being sort of vulnerable and not really knowing what to do. And then now you see them at this later time being like kick-ass and they're like, I know what I need to do and this is what I need to do to, you know, move on with my life or to make my life better. And I think like that was interesting to me for both of them. I mean, I think it applies to all of the characters really, but with the two of them especially, it's just nice to see that they are still kind of vulnerable on the inside, but they've decided like, oh, I have to be strong, I have to be smart, and I have to know like, I have to decide for myself that this is how I'm going to live the rest of my life. This is how I'm going to move forward with it. And I think like, especially with Inej for me, you kind of see her you actually see this sort of entire spectrum of her journey from start to finish because she makes a very big decision for herself at the end. And I think that that was really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, I thought Nina was fascinating, and that like the way that that she just handled certain situations. I just thought that like said so much about her character, like the fact that she was willing to do so much for Matthias, or I'm not sure how to say his name. I can't say like any of these names.
Probably Kaz and Jesper are like the only pronounceable. I mean,
yeah, I think so. But yeah, I thought like just the way that she felt like so like she needed to make up to him for her like initial mistake, and everything that she was willing to do that, even though it was things that were like going to really be not good situations for her to be in, and just places where she put her trust and stuff. I just thought that she was just so interesting. And so speaking of Kaz, do you guys think that he was a good leader, or do you think that he needed to give his team like more information about what was going on?
Ooh. You have to wonder if he had given them the information, would everything have worked out like it would? But at the same time, if I knew someone like that, like in real life, they would drive me bonkers and I would hate to be around them. So on the one hand, I can see why he would hold information, but I could also understand how that would be counterintuitive. I mean, it works, so you can't really argue with that, but I think being a little more transparent with, your team members might go a long way in the future.
I think that it was okay he didn't give them all the information. I mean, like, I'm not saying that I would personally enjoy that. I think I would just be annoyed all the time and I'd be yelling at him because I'm like, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? But in their case, I kind of like, I think it was partly because aside from like in Nedge maybe, he kind of can't really trust any of them. I think that was part of the reason why he didn't want to tell them anything. So I kind of see where he was coming from with being like, oh, you get to know this much, but not everything. I mean, it obviously could backfire because he's the only one who knows everything. Then in case something happens to him, obviously everything would go to shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like in this particular context, I understand why he's like the only one who holds all the cards close to his chest. And yeah, I don't think it makes him a good leader because I feel like Cassie was saying, it's kind of the payoff for being transparent with your team is that there's sort of a better level of trust, and it forms slightly faster than the way it does in this book. But at the same time, like in this case, I don't think he really had a choice. Like he's like, I don't know if I can trust this person to do this. I can predict their actions, maybe, but like that's still like a 50-50 thing. So I guess I'm just going to keep this to myself until I have to tell them. So I kind of understood that. Don't think it makes him a great leader, but I get why he did not share all that info.
He was like one of the characters that I definitely liked the most. And I think it was because he was so mysterious until we finally got his backstory. But I think they did a good job in the beginning of setting up like his initial betrayal with someone. So that like shows why he doesn't tell everyone everything. And everything is very like need to know kind of basis, or even you might need to know and won't know until the very last second kind of thing. So I think like for the sake of the story, it kept things really interesting. I like go back and forth about whether I think it made him a good leader or not, because on the one hand, like he definitely should trust his teammates, hopefully. But also if one of them was not trustworthy, then he did prevent everyone else from getting into like trouble. So like he had a good reason not to, but yeah, he's just like, I don't know. I just love him. Like he was just so cool.
I think that's actually what makes him such an interesting character, because he's so ambiguous. Like you don't know if he's all bad or all good or somewhere in between, which I think he is. But like it's interesting because you kind of can't predict. You really can't predict him.
Yeah.
Like compared to like the others where you sort of have an idea of who their personalities are and what they would do in a given like situation. With Kaz, it's like, I have no idea what he's going to decide to do. Is he going to leave people? Is he going to kill someone because he has to?
He's for sure the wild card.
Yeah, definitely.
Make for such a better book, though.
I know. I think it makes it more interesting because he's the leader and he's the wild card at the same time.
Yeah, like he always has something up his sleeve.
I know. I was like, what does Kaz have coming next? And like every time something happened, I was like, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I'm like, Kaz probably has something like up his sleeve and we just don't know it yet. And maybe it'll show up, maybe it won't. I don't know. But yeah,
actually, now that I'm thinking about it again, maybe that also does make him a good leader, because then even in situations where he doesn't have something up his sleeve, everyone on his team thinks that everything is going to work out, which might make them work harder to make things work out. like reverse psychology or something.
Or they'll be like, I don't have to do anything. Kaz has got this.
That's what it seems like half the time, I think.
Who was your favorite ship in the book?
That's so hard.
The
I
whole
really liked. Okay, so I really like Nina and Matthias, maybe, but I also kind of want Jesper and Wylan to like, you know, I'm like, there's something there, and she keeps like teasing it. So I hope maybe. So
I hope so. That would be amazing if that actually happened.
yeah,
I like when I was rereading it, it stood out to me more. Like Jesper and Wylan stood out to me more, even though there's so little to go on. I'm just like,
I know.
look at these two precious human beings. They just need to realize their feelings and move on. But I think like if we're talking about who is the strongest ship, the one that like I from the first time I read it to the second time I read it, who I like the most, then definitely Nina and Matthias. Just because it's so interesting the way she kind of like when you first see them talk about each other, you're kind of like, what is this? And then later when you realize like the backstories each of them have and apart and together, you're kind of like, oh, I see what you're doing there. And it's really easy to be like, I want you guys to get together and stay together and be happy if that's at all possible for you two. But yeah.
I definitely liked Jesper and Wylan the best. The whole time I was just like, oh, this is totally gonna happen. Like, oh my gosh, like their interactions and everything I thought were so adorable. And I loved like the way that they started off with like Jesper just thinking that he was like useless and so annoying, but then he like also really cared about him. And then like something would happen, he would be like trying to save him. And it was just like so precious.
It was. Well, we only didn't talk about one ship, right? We only just did not mention Kaz and Inij. We're the last.
Because I feel like that's weird. I don't know. Like,
I mean, it seems typical, almost weirdly. Out of all of them, they kind of feel like they were the most likely to happen or like be shipped.
Like immediately, I was like, they're getting together at some point.
Yeah, because it's like Inij likes him, like that's like a given. And then there's Kaz, who's like, it's like one of those things where like someone clearly likes someone else, and the other person just doesn't want to admit they like them back.
Like this is so dumb, you guys.
I'm just like, we're gonna go around in circles now, where you're like, I care about you, but I can't tell you because I don't think I should. And I'm just like,
I almost said be adults, but I keep forgetting they're like teenagers.
Oh yeah,
that's true. They definitely seem older than they are.
No, well, they've been through so much that I don't think that's too surprising. Although I did feel really terrible for Kaz at the end.
Yeah.
I felt horrible. Like when he started feeling horrible, I was like, this is what happens when you don't admit things. This is what happens when you only admit it at the last moment.
Yep.
Tragedy. But yeah, I guess that's why to me, like they're cute, but I'm like, they're not the ones I would focus on if you were going to ask me about ships.
Yeah. What was the most nail-biting moment for you in the story?
There were so many like stressful moments. I guess the most stressful was when they're in the prison and Kaz goes off to find what's the guy's name? I forget.
I know, but the other gang leader, right?
Yeah, and he finds Pekka, and Nina's like, where is he? He's supposed to be here now, and there's this crazy thing, and they're all running around, and they can't find each other, and then she runs into the guards, and I'm like, great.
Pekka?
Yeah.
Pekka Rollins, right? Pekka Rollins.
Yeah,
that's him.
And he's off, like, you think he's having his, like, revenge murder, and he's, like, too distracted by that to, like, stay on task, and Nina's just wandering around, like, going, like, oh, my God, where is he? So that was very stressful for me.
Poor Nina.
I know.
I can only imagine how she felt. She was like, damn it. I think for me, the entire heist was pretty stressful, let's be real. Like, the entire thing. But the one that I found really stressful, you know, the part where Inij has to climb up, like, the walls of, like, I don't know, I guess it's a chimney.
Like incinerator.
Like, yeah. Oh my God. I was like, the entire time I was reading that to him, like, oh, she's gonna die. She's gonna fall. This is gonna be over. Like, I felt so terrible for her because it's like, she is capable of doing it. That's not even the question. But like the fact that she didn't have like the appropriate clothing and that it wasn't working, I was like, she's gonna die. She's gonna get injured. This is gonna, like this is not gonna go well. And I was like the entire time I'm reading, I'm like, please let her make it to the top. Please let her make it.
That was really stressful. And they were saying that like the rubber of her shoes.
Yeah, and it was like melting into her feet. Oh my god, I was like freaking out. I'm like, I can't. Only because I loved her so much, clearly.
I think the most stressful for me was the part with Jesper and Wyland when they were like on that boat and there was like a bomb or something. That was like so stressful to me because they were my favorite and I was like, oh no, leave them alone. Just don't hurt them.
You know, I feel like the moment they leave for the heist, everything becomes like twice as stressful. And then when they actually get to the, what is it called, the ice court, it gets 3 times as stressful because you're like, they're going to get caught. They're going to get discovered. Someone's going to make a mistake. Someone's going to betray someone else.
Yeah.
Like, you know what else I think is stressful though? Like, I think we probably all agree on that. The part where you think that they're done for because Nina and Matthias.
Oh yeah.
Like Nina got imprisoned and Matthias looked like he was betraying her, and I was like,
yeah, that was really exciting.
Yeah. I was like, no.
I know, me too. I was like, and the thing is, you couldn't believe he would do it. Because
I feel like in any other book though, I would have been like, oh, well, it's probably, you know, like a ploy.
Yeah.
But this I was like, oh, my heart.
I was like, are you ruining my ship already? But yeah, this entire book is basically just me going, no!
Hopefully the next book will be us going, yes!
Oh, I hope so, especially when it comes to Jesper and Wyland. That would be great.
How did you guys think the pacing was throughout the story? Because there were a lot of exciting parts. Do you feel like they were like evenly spaced?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice mix, especially with like the interweaving of like present day and backstory. I thought was really good. I actually usually have a problem for some reason, like following action scenes when I read them. Like often in like a really action-filled book, like when it gets to an action-packed scene, I kind of like can't, I don't know, like follow what's happening in the action. But this, I was on board for all of it, so bravo.
I think, interestingly enough, I think like in between when you first get introduced to all the characters and when they actually leave for the heist, when it's like the preparation stage, sort of, I guess, I felt like that part was a bit like slower than the rest, which is not a bad thing per se, because that's also the part where you unravel a bit more of their backstories. But yeah, I mean, like that's the only time when it really slows down. Everything else is kind of like, okay, we have to go and go and go and go and go. And I think like that also makes the book so easy to read, even though it's so long, because like so much is happening already. You're trying to figure out like how it all fits together and how all of these scenes are going to happen. And yeah, I think in the end, like that's the only part I would say is a bit slower than everything else, just a little bit. But then everything really equally action-packed from like the beginning scene with what Kristen mentioned earlier, where there's this big betrayal scene with Kaz in it, and then it like the scene where the explosion on the boat happens and like all of the other stuff. There's so much different types of action scenes too, which I think is nice because the pacing stays the same, but something else is happening. It's not just fist fight, fist fight, fist fight, fist fight. It's like fist fight, explosion, chase, some elemental trying to kill you. I mean, it's like a bunch of things.
I thought it was a really nice mix too. It was like there was constantly something exciting happening, and even like within the backstories, there were like exciting events. So it never was something that was ever really like boring at any point. It was always just like, even if there was like a lull in action for like a minute, it was because you were gonna hit action again like really soon.
Agreed.
So yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable to read, and I thought the pacing was like amazing because it really, like every time that I would have to stop reading and like get off of my train, I would be like, no, I want to keep going. So yeah, I thought that was like amazing. Let's see. We kind of talked about this too. Who's your favorite character? And then we'll also talk about who's our least favorite character.
Oh, Nina. Or my Kaz. Ooh, least favorite? I want to say Wyland's dad, but I'm going to say the lady who ran the menagerie.
Oh my God.
Oh, she was awful.
What a horrible woman to take, buy women and force them into prostitution. You are a monster, and you deserve every horrible thing that happens to you.
Favorite in Edge, and then Kaz is also my second. Least favorite. I guess if we were going to talk about least favorite and like who I was least interested in, I'd actually say, I forget his name, Joust? Is that, let me look it up because it's like right next to it.
Oh, the guy in the
Whoever
beginning.
like the first character was. Yeah.
The mustache guy.
Sorry, Joust. I just was like, I mean, I get why they did that scene and like why it's in there, but like at the same time, like, I don't really care about you. But if it was going to be like who I hated, I think it's just because I'm biased because I freaking love Kaz. So I freaking hate Pekka Rollins. Like, I do not like him at all. And then, like, the more you learn about him, the more I disliked him. So he's probably my least favorite.
I think overall, Kaz was my favorite just because I feel like he was so interesting. And because he was such a wild card, I was just like, I can't predict anything that you're going to do. So you're just so interesting to me. And then for least favorite, that one is hard. Pekka Rollins is obviously a huge villain, and like what he did to Kaz is so terrible, but I feel like he's also gonna be like super interesting. So I think like in the next book, I'm gonna end up like hating him, like having a love-hate relationship with him, because I'll be like, you're fascinating, but I hate you. But tell me more. So yeah, I think I would have to agree with Cassie that one woman.
I still hate her too.
I forget how to say her Tantaline or Tante.
Tante Helene.
I looked it up, but no closer to pronouncing it.
I'm picking up on that.
I guess Helene. Let's just call her Helene.
Mm-hmm.
That lady who sells. Oh, I can't. Just makes
like at least other people, like, you can be like, oh, Pekka Rollins is a horrible person because he's greedy.
Actually, they're all horrible.
Yeah, you can be like, he's horrible because he's greedy. This person's horrible for this reason. You're just like, what is your motivation, lady? Why are you doing this to
She seems to have one, except that she takes pleasure in it, which I think is like terrifying.
Sadist.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
So how do you feel about the newest perspective that's been added to the mix?
Oh, I'm very excited to see where that takes us. I always love, they did this in the 1,000th floor too, spoilers. They switched to a brand new POV at the end, and I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
good in book 2.
I think it'll be interesting. It's sort of like gonna give you an outsider's perspective, because you're kind of like not stuck, you're kind of just within the crows when you read most of the perspectives in this book. This one is going to be like someone else. So that should be interesting, I think. And it should also be like one of those things where you get a bigger idea, like outside of what's going on with the gang itself. Like you get a bigger idea of what's going on in the world around them and like what other, I don't know, situations are afoot to like influence what's going on with them. So I think that should be interesting.
I cannot wait to have this perspective. I'm so excited. But I'm also really curious to find out if he knows who Kaz is, like if he recognizes him at all.
Oh, like he secretly.
Yeah, like he secretly knows and knows that it bothers Kaz that he wouldn't know. So he just like pretends that he doesn't. I'm so curious. Like I need to know more about this guy.
Hope we find out.
I know. And speaking of which, what do you guys hope to see more of in Crooked Kingdom?
More of Jasper and Wylan making out.
More of, or just in general?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a nice conclusion to everyone's stories. That's always good in a finale for me, is like a nice bow on everything. But, without making it too predictable.
That'll be interesting. I think I would like to see almost the same amount of action scenes. It doesn't have to be a heist, but I would like to see them do more like epic battle scenes. And this time I want like Wylan to again have like his big moment. You know how he gets a big moment in Six of Crows during like the, that scene, the boat scene. I think it would be nice if he had more, like he had more stuff on his part, because a lot of his like his actions in this one, they always come a little later. Like he only gets very few big moments, and I think it would be nice to have him get more. I also would like to see everyone's stories resolved. I don't know if that means that certain people end up together or not. I don't know if that means they each get what they were hoping for at the end of Six of Crows, but I would just like to see it like all nicely wrapped up. Like Cassie said, basically, I would just like to see everyone get an ending and not just, have like a hanging, you can make your own ending for them sort of thing.
Yeah.
No, because that bothers me so much. Like I could make an ending, but it wouldn't be as satisfying as
my job.
Yeah. I definitely want to see Jesper and Wyland end up together. And I also really want to see like Jesper teach Wyland how to read, and then write out
that'd be so cute.
like a really nasty letter, just to like get back at him and be like,
yeah. Fuck you, Dad. I can write and read now.
yeah. I feel like that would be so satisfying. But I like that even though he can't do that, like they still made him really important and still showed that there are still like merits to him, even though that's something that he like has struggles with. But yeah, I definitely want to see that. And I also really want to see how the story is going to play out between Kaz and Pekka Rollins. I feel like that's going to be like the main thing keeping me interested next book, more so than any relationship, with the exception of Jesper and Wyland, because that has to happen. And then I need like the fighting between Kaz and Pekka.
Oh my god, maybe they should have an epic fight scene. That would be really cool.
That would.
I was so worried he like killed him off page, and I wasn't gonna get to experience that revenge.
I know. I like it so much more that he left him, because he's like, no, I need to like beat you in a really epic way. Where
This should both have like easy if I
Yeah, I mean that would have been a shame, and I think it would have made me like Kaz a little less, because I'd be like, why did you do it off screen when we know he's so mad about all of the stuff that Pekka's put him through, and then he's dead already? Really?
Yeah, you didn't even take your time.
I know, you didn't even show us torturing, like him torturing Pekka, you know what I mean? But like, I'm glad that he's not dead yet.
This is like a Sweeney Todd type situation.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah.
You gotta wait and enjoy your revenge murder.
Maybe that's what the next book should be, a revenge murder plot.
That's what I'm hoping for. Revenge stories are like some of my favorites. So I just feel like there's so much opportunity for that to happen.
He has 2 revenge things that he can live out now, so that'll be fun.
So would you guys recommend Six of Crows? And if so, who would you recommend it to?
Ooh. Who would I recommend it to? Yes, I would recommend it, obviously. To anyone who likes a beautifully written action-filled fantasy with a twist.
Oh, I like that. I would also recommend it, and I often say that I would recommend it to someone who has never tried young adult fantasy and, has like a set impression of it, because this book is very different from most of the ones I've read. So I think it would be like something interesting to throw their way and be like, this is an example of YA fantasy. And no, it's not what you think.
Where are the wizards and unicorns?
I know, right? Or like, how some people are like, YA fantasy is always about like the one character who's going to be the savior of their kingdom. I'm like, not exactly in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is like a really good place for people to start who maybe haven't tried fantasy yet and are looking for like an accessible way to get into it.
Yeah, agreed.
It's so good. And how many stars did you guys give it?
I gave it 5. I thought it was perfect. I'm not even ashamed.
I gave it 5 too, both times I read it. So
oh, okay, that's good.
Definitely loved it, obviously.
Was there a reading you liked better? Just out of curiosity.
The first time I read it in physical form. The second time I read it, I actually read it via audiobook.
Oh.
And surprisingly, I'm not overly fond of audiobook as a format. Like I like reading books via audiobook, but it's not like ever my favorite. But for some reason, this one really worked for me. I think it's because it's a different voice narrating each of their perspectives.
Ooh, I like that.
Which definitely makes it better, because they're so distinctive, first of all, so it's easy to remember who you're listening to, even if they don't tell you, though they do, obviously. But I liked it. Like, they picked really good narrators for each of those characters, and I'm like, it made it come to life a little more. So I think I would say I like the second one more, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen. Like, even knowing everything, like, I knew, like, this was coming, or that big explosion, whatever, was going to come. It didn't actually bother me, because listening to it on audiobook was exciting, because it was different, and I'm like, oh, this is so great. So I guess I would say the second one was probably my favorite.
That makes sense. I feel like I usually like books better when I reread them, because I also just like find more clues and stuff that I maybe didn't pick up upon the first time.
Yeah.
I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, because I feel like it was really, 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 really overhyped for me. But I still loved it. I just like, I don't know.
That's fair. Maybe you'll give it a higher rating when you read it again.
Yeah, that's very possible. And I'm also like really looking forward to reading the next book.
Me too.
I feel like that will hopefully be 5 stars.
2 days.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow, it came really fast.
I know. I'm so excited. Ridiculous.
It's because we've been trying to do this book club for like a month.
Yeah, we didn't.
But it worked out. We don't make it this time.
It's like perfect timing. So we are skipping a September book club because
Obviously.
I know our September one now. But we're picking up again in October with a Halloween themed read. And we're going to be reading The Graces by
I really love that cover.
Eve or Laura Eve. It's such a pretty looking book.
And that book is gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, even the inside is so beautiful.
Sad to see, but you know.
I love that. I love the cover so much.
The UK edition is also really pretty with like the shells on it. But yeah.
Oh wait, and what is that magic spine? It has like a magic spine.
Yeah, it's like a vanishing thing going on.
I didn't even know that.
Pretty
I
fancy.
saw like a little Instagram video of it, and I was like, ooh.
I need to go look that up.
Yeah.
That's actually, I didn't realize you guys were reading it for October, but that makes sense.
Witches. Yeah, we figured witches for Halloween.
It was going to be our September read, but you know.
I'm already ready for Halloween. I've got my Hocus Pocus shirt on.
Oh, I didn't show you. I'm wearing a Six of Crow shirt. Hold on.
Wow.
Cool.
It says no mourners, no funerals.
Wow, I like that.
From Evie book.
Yeah, of course it is.
Nice.
I had to buy it like immediately after I finished reading Six of Crows.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love it so much. But yeah. Oh, The Grace is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for
I'm going to
that.
have to show up and watch you guys talk about it.
Well, our last October read was polarizing, so I'm curious.
Oh, is that Dead House? It was Dead House, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Kristen, this is our October will be our 1 year.
Your anniversary.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I feel like we just started this book club.
I know, me too.
Well, apparently you guys are celebrating 1 year now.
Yeah.
Cheers to that in your October video.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So then we'll all definitely have to drink wine during that one.
Yes. Mandatory alcohol.
Yeah.
This time it can't just be Cassie.
Okay, so before we sign off, do you guys want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. You can find me. My main 3 are not necessarily in this order: Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. I am Yurchmonger. That is YRCHMONGER. Or you can head to my book blog, Bibliomantics, where I write about books and book adaptations and all things books.
Are you holding a wand?
Yes.
I like how you noticed that. I was trying to figure out what she was holding.
The cat was playing with it, so like I've been like taunting her. But I actually have 2. This one, my tattoo artist made on his 3D printer for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that one's really neat. And then the other one's just from Universal.
I like her, it's just Universal.
Just Universal.
Compared to the 3D printer. Well, for me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, the blog, and my YouTube channel, and they're all Alexa Loves Books, so pretty easy to remember.
And I am here on this channel and on Twitter and Instagram and Goodreads as well. So we will see you guys next month to talk about some witches. Bye.
Yay.